G'day people, I'm Sharyn, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be stitching out my design number 47, which is available from my website, and it's part of the 100 design set, and it's a Christmassy looking design. I'm going to make it into a couple of things, and one of them involves Embroidery. So this is how I'm going to hoop it up. Got my backing fabric on top of my hoop, and I'm going to put some rubberized matting here and here, long pieces, and I'm going to put a short piece at each end, and then I'm going to put in my hoop. Remembering I don't want this stretched. If I stretch this, then when I sew, it will be stretched during the embroidery, and when I relax it, because I take it out of the hoop, it will pull back in and it won't look so nice. Amazingly, I've managed to find more of my magnets. These go in from the inside out. So between having rubberized matting top and bottom and each side and these, nothing in there is shifting. The wadding I am going to introduce is actually a product called Embroidery. And then I've got my top fabric. And that is what's going into my sewing machine. Embroidery is an insulating product, and it will work in pot holders and oven mitts, things like that. And it works just fine in your embroidery machine. Today I wanted to sew this design with 2 threads through the needle to make it thicker. I wound an extra bobbin, which I have, sorry about the moving, put up here. I threaded that through my machine and that through my machine. I didn't ask the machine to thread the needle with 2 threads. I used a needle threader. And if you want to know how they work, check my video on how to use a needle threader. Here is the finished design, sewed out with double thread on the top. And I hope you can see the difference between the double thread on the top and the single thread underneath. It is very much darker and more visible. The other reason I wanted to tell you this is that this is a good approximation of top stitching thread. And if you're trying to put top stitching onto a pair of jeans, it could be that the only way you can find the right colour to match what's already on the jeans is to buy regular thread and then do what I just did, put 2 lots of the thread through the needle, and it will give you a nice stitch. Here are 6 14cm designs. They go together to make a nice placemat. So I've just zigzagged them together, and I'm going to use bias tape to go around the edge. Bias tape, something that I purchased. I'm sure there's lots of brands of it around. And in red, looks really nice, makes things really Christmassy. I used 1/2 inch bias tape here and 1 inch going around the edge. And because these squares were only cut with 1/4 inch around the edge, there's actually a little bit here that's empty, hasn't got any wadding in it. I'm not worried about that. I would rather that look like it's the same width as that. And that's why I used wider tape around the edge, so that it could go all the way to the back. After I had finished, I cut this out with a 1 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm using 2 1/2 inch fabric here. I drew a line 1/4 inch out from that, and that is where I placed the fabric. On the back, I stitched that down and I extended it all the way into the borders, and it's stitched there, it's stitched there. You can see where I've got the lines ready to go in that direction. And I stitched it down just inside this red line, which means that that sewing from the embroidery will not show on the right side. Turn it over. I can take that there, flatten it out, and I've got enough extra fabric that when I switch over this side, I can fold it in and again, and that becomes the binding. I will do it a little bit better before I actually stitch it. But the result of that, I stitched it down on this end, and there's my binding on the back, and there on the front I did put a row of stitching on the front. If I'd really wanted to, I could hand stitch that, but I'm not concerned. This method allows my border fabric from the front to fold to the back and become my binding. When I stitch down the binding on the back with the sewing machine, I get a line of stitching on the front, and I changed the bobbin thread to make sure it matched the fabric. I've now sewn these on the right side for the final ones, but these I need to be doing something a little bit different at the ends because I can't just cut that off. So what I'm doing, I'm pushing it up there so that I've got things nice and firm. When you go to do the final sides, I've just discovered a good idea to have a reasonable amount of fabric out of the end here, because what we want to do is fold that in with a little bit of fold heading that way. You don't want to actually accidentally have it coming that far that way. So I'm going to fold this in, and what I'm looking to get is a fold over here that matches that one. At the other end, I haven't actually left myself very much to play with. So I'm going to fold over a tiny bit and pull it over as far as I can. When I'm sewing it, I'll try and fix that up. But if I can't, I'm not going to get too tense about it. This edge then becomes a bring it in a bit and then do the same thing again. That bringing it in a bit should mean that this piece doesn't hang off the end. And there it is, ready for me to sew up. Don't forget that when you're making something like this, it's up to you how you choose to finish it off. On the back, on this one, that little bit is loose. I could choose to do a few hand stitches there and hold it down. On the right side of it, the stitching turns the corner. Alternatively, on this one, when I was sewing that, I went all the way down to the edge, which means there's very little of this one that's open, and then I went back and down this way. On the right side, it looks a little bit different. There's no wrong or right way, there's just whatever suits you. And if you don't mind getting out a needle and thread, to just do a couple of overcast stitches there at the end, that's perfectly fine. Maybe you want to do it this way. But the overall effect is lovely. With Christmas just around the corner, a design that only takes 6 minutes to stitch out, and that's at 400 stitches per minute, can actually be made into something that is a nice little gift. On those, it would also perhaps be nice to put a name in one corner. See you next time.